Santa Barbara, California is the pearl of the U.S. West Coast. Known for its picturesque beaches, fine wines, and colonial architecture, this city is a magnet for tourists and wealthy residents. The combination of sunny climate and Pacific breeze creates ideal conditions for living and recreation. However, behind the external calm and well-being of this resort town, its secrets and tragedies are hidden. On one of the usual sunny days, when the streets of Santa Barbara were filled with joyful tourists and locals, the city was shocked by the news of a brutal murder. The sudden and tragic death of famous businessman Michael Anderson not only shocked residents, but also cast a shadow on the serene appearance of this cozy corner of California. Michael Anderson was an influential figure in the Santa Barbara business community. His real estate and construction companies brought him not only a huge fortune, but also many enemies. He was a man with a reputation as an unwavering and tough businessman who stopped at nothing to achieve his goals. Nevertheless, for many, he remained an example of a successful entrepreneur who achieved everything through his own efforts. The events of that fateful day began like any other day. Michael spent the morning in his luxurious office located in the city center on the ocean. His employees noted his tense behavior and frequent phone calls. No one suspected that this day would be the last in the life of their boss. That afternoon, as Michael was preparing to meet with an important client, he unexpectedly left the office. None of his colleagues paid any attention to this, since he often acted spontaneously. However, when Anderson did not return in the evening, his wife Elizabeth began to worry. Michael always warned her if he was late at work, but this time there was no call. Elizabeth contacted the police, and the search soon began. A few hours later, late at night, Michael's body was found in his car, parked on the outskirts of the city, in a quiet and dark place, away from human eyes. He was shot at point-blank range, indicating a cold-blooded and planned murder. The news of Michael Anderson's death instantly spread throughout the city. Journalists and reporters flooded the streets, trying to find out more. Police and detectives began investigating, but so far they had few leads. Family, friends, and colleagues were in shock and grief, trying to make sense of what had happened. Santa Barbara no longer seemed such a serene place. Society demanded answers and justice. What lay ahead was a complex and intricate investigation that would reveal not only the secrets of the murder itself, but also the hidden aspects of the lives of those who were close to Michael Anderson. Michael Anderson was born and raised in Santa Barbara in a middle-class family. His father was an engineer, and his mother was a teacher. Since childhood, Michael has shown extraordinary aptitude for entrepreneurship and has always strived to achieve more. Already at school, he organized a small business selling lemonade and snow cones, which allowed him to save his first money. After graduating from high school, Michael entered Stanford University, where he studied economics and management. It was there that he began to formulate his ambitions and dreams of starting his own company. After graduation, Michael returned to Santa Barbara with the goal of building his business here, in his native land. At age 30, Michael founded his first real estate company, Anderson Realty. Starting with small transactions, he gradually expanded his business, acquiring new properties and developing construction projects. His companies quickly became leaders in the real estate market in Santa Barbara and the surrounding area. Michael was renowned for his insight and ability to find profitable deals, as well as his tough approach to doing business. Over time, he expanded his interests by investing in hotels, restaurants, and entertainment complexes. His successes attracted the attention of not only local residents, but also large investors. At the same time, his harsh methods and intransigence created many enemies for him, both among competitors and among partners. Michael's personal life was eventful, but not always smooth. At the age of 35, he married Elizabeth Marshall, a local artist and philanthropist. Their marriage was considered exemplary. Both actively participated in the public life of the city, did charity work, and supported cultural projects. They had 2 children, son Jason and daughter Amanda. The family lived in a luxurious mansion on the ocean, which became a symbol of success and prosperity. However, behind the external picture of an ideal family, tense relationships were hidden. Michael was known for his controlling behavior and desire to always get his way. Elizabeth often felt overshadowed by his ambitions, which led to quarrels and conflicts. Despite this, they continued to maintain the appearance of harmony for the sake of their children and reputation. In the business sphere, Michael had many friends and associates, but also many ill-wishers. His successes aroused envy and hostility among his competitors. He often faced lawsuits and accusations of unfair competition. However, his companies continued to grow, bringing him more money and influence. One of his closest people in business was his old friend and partner, Jonathan Price. They met at university and have since worked on many projects together. Jonathan was Michael's right hand and always supported him, even in the most difficult situations. However, as the business grew, their relationship became increasingly strained due to differences in vision and approach to running the company. In the last years of his life, Michael devoted more and more time to charity and social activities. He donated large sums to the development of local schools, hospitals, and cultural institutions. His involvement in the life of the city made him not only a successful businessman, but also a respected citizen. However, despite all the achievements and successes, Michael Anderson remained a man with many enemies. His death was a blow not only to family and friends, but to the entire Santa Barbara business community. A shadow of suspicion fell on many who had the motive and opportunity to commit this crime. The investigation was to be complex and intricate, revealing the secret aspects of the life and activities of this outstanding but controversial person. April 25, 2024 started out like a normal spring day in Santa Barbara. The sunny morning illuminated the city streets, creating a feeling of calm and well-being. Michael Anderson arrived at his office early in the morning as usual. His luxury car, a shiny black Bentley, stopped at the entrance to the Anderson Realty office building. The office staff greeted him with respect and some shyness, aware of his strict nature and high expectations. Michael spent the morning in meetings, discussing plans for upcoming projects and analyzing financial reports. His assistant, Susan, noted his unusual nervousness and frequent phone calls. During the day, he locked himself in his office several times for lengthy conversations, which was uncharacteristic of his usual work routine. Around noon, Michael received an unexpected call. He quickly packed his things and left the office without telling anyone where he was going. Colleagues thought that he was just going to an important meeting, but his haste aroused some suspicions. No one could have guessed that this was the last time they saw their boss alive. After lunch, around 3 p.m., Michael was scheduled to meet with a major investor, James Harrison, in his office. However, he never showed up for the meeting, and calls from James went unanswered. This raised concerns among the investor, who contacted Michael's office. Susan, not knowing where her boss was, also began to worry and tried to call Michael, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Anderson, Michael's wife, also began to worry. Michael always called her if he was late at work or had a meeting, but that day there was not a word from him. She decided to wait a little longer, hoping he was just busy. By evening, the anxiety intensified. Elizabeth contacted the police, reporting her husband missing. The police began their search by interviewing Michael's colleagues and friends. A search operation was organized, in which both local residents and volunteers participated. A few hours later, around 11 p.m., Michael's body was discovered in his car, parked in an abandoned lot on the outskirts of the city. The car was parked in a dark, deserted place, hidden from prying eyes. Michael was shot at point-blank range and appears to have died instantly. There were no signs of a struggle inside the car, indicating the suddenness of the attack. The police immediately cordoned off the crime scene and began an investigation. Forensic experts scrutinized every detail, trying to find clues. But the initial results were disappointing. No traces were found that could indicate the identity of the killer. No weapon was found, and no shoe prints or fingerprints were found. The news of Michael Anderson's death instantly spread throughout the city. Journalists and reporters filled the streets, covering the events live. Michael's family, friends, and colleagues were in shock and grief. Elizabeth and the children were overwhelmed with grief, not understanding how this could have happened. The city plunged into a state of anxiety and uncertainty. Santa Barbara, known for its tranquility and safety, became the site of a brutal murder. Society demanded answers and justice. A complex and intricate investigation lay ahead, which was supposed to reveal not only the secrets of the murder itself, but also the hidden sides of the lives of those who were close to Michael Anderson. Police and detectives began the painstaking work of examining Michael's every move that day, interviewing everyone who might have seen or known anything important. The investigation promised to be long and difficult, but no one was going to stop until the killer was found and brought to justice. Santa Barbara police, led by Detective Jack Matthews, immediately began investigating. Jack was an experienced detective, known for his tenacity and ability to solve even the most difficult cases. Working with him was his partner, Detective Sarah Johnson, who has a keen mind and attention to detail. Their team included forensic scientists, analysts, and patrol officers who helped collect and analyze evidence. The first days of the investigation were tense. Jack and Sarah began by interviewing Michael Anderson's family. Elizabeth, still in shock from the tragedy, tried to help by answering the detectives' questions. She talked about the last conversation she had with her husband, his plans for the day, and the suspicious calls he had been receiving lately. The children, Jason and Amanda, were also interviewed, but they could add little to the information already known to police. The next step was to interview Michael's colleagues and business partners. Jack and Sarah visited the Anderson Realty office, where they spent long hours talking with employees. Susan, Michael's assistant, spoke in detail about his nervousness on the day of the murder and about the mysterious call after which he left the office. She also provided detectives with a list of Michael's recent contacts and records of his meetings. One of the first suspects was James Harrison, an investor who was supposed to meet with Michael on the day of the murder. James was known for his short temper and confrontational nature. However, he had an alibi. He had spent the entire day at a business meeting in Los Angeles, which was confirmed by several witnesses. Despite this, Jack and Sarah did not rule out the possibility of his involvement and continued to monitor his actions. Another suspect turned out to be Jonathan Price, Michael's longtime friend and business partner. Their relationship has recently become strained due to disagreements over the management of the company. Jonathan was in the office on the day of the murder and claimed that he was unaware of Michael's plans to leave the building. He cooperated with police and provided access to his business records, but his motives remained suspect. Detectives also turned their attention to Michael's business competitors. The success of Anderson Realty aroused the envy and hostility of many business owners in Santa Barbara. Jack and Sarah began interviewing those who had financial and personal conflicts with Michael. One of these people was Mark Taylor, the owner of a construction company, who sued Michael several times over land plots. Mark maintained that he had nothing to do with the murder, but his hostility towards Michael was obvious. The investigation led detectives to more unexpected discoveries. Financial problems and suspicious transactions related to Michael's company were revealed. Some documents pointed to possible links to criminal gangs, adding a new layer of complexity to the case. Jack and Sarah began checking these connections, trying to understand whether someone from the criminal world could have ordered Michael's murder. At the same time, forensic scientists continued to analyze evidence found at the crime scene. Michael's car was thoroughly examined, and although at first glance there was little evidence, experts found microscopic traces that could lead to solving the case. DNA traces were found inside the car that did not belong to Michael or his family. This discovery gave new hope for finding the killer. Gradually, the picture of the murder began to take shape. It was obvious that Michael knew his killer and did not expect the attack. His death appeared to be a carefully planned crime rather than a random act of violence. Everything indicated that the killer had carefully prepared and knew Michael's schedule and habits. Jack and Sarah continued to work, checking every lead and not missing a single detail. They knew they had a lot of work ahead of them, but they were determined to solve the case and bring the killer to justice. Time passed, and pressure from the public and the media only intensified. Soon the detectives received an unexpected call that could turn the entire investigation upside down. The investigation continued, and each new discovery added new details to the overall picture. Jack Matthews and Sarah Johnson did not give up, carefully checking all possible connections and motives. Finally, they received an important call from an informant who provided key information that would shed light on the murder of Michael Anderson. The call came from an anonymous source who said he knew who killed Michael. The informant claimed that the killer was a person close to Michael who had the motive and opportunity to commit this crime. This man was not only well informed about Michael's affairs, but also had access to his personal life. The informant pointed to Jonathan Price, Michael's longtime friend and partner. He claimed that Jonathan had been hiding his financial problems for a long time and was using Michael's company to cover up his fraud. Jonathan knew about the impending revelation of his schemes and understood that Michael would not ignore it. Fearing exposure and possible imprisonment, Jonathan decided to eliminate Michael. Jack and Sarah immediately began checking this information. They requested the company's financial records and found numerous discrepancies. Jonathan's financial statements were falsified, and his machinations could indeed lead to major scandals and lawsuits. This new information increased detectives' suspicions. Jack and Sarah decided to act carefully so as not to scare Jonathan away. They began to follow him, recording all his movements and contacts. They soon obtained a search warrant to search his home and office. The search yielded results. Evidence was found in Jonathan's office linking him to Michael's murder. The gun, registered to Jonathan's name, was hidden in his personal safe. The examination showed that this was the exact weapon with which Michael was shot. Jonathan was immediately arrested. During interrogation, he initially denied his guilt, but under pressure from the evidence and witnesses provided by the informant, he began to get confused in his testimony. In the end, he confessed to the murder, explaining his action by fear of exposure and the desire to maintain his position and freedom. The arrest of Jonathan Price came as a shock to all of Santa Barbara. Many could not believe that Michael's longtime friend and partner could commit such a crime. Society was divided between those who were shocked and disappointed, and those who demanded fair punishment for the killer. The media covered every stage of the investigation and trial. Jack and Sarah were recognized for their persistent and hard work. Their efforts led to the discovery of the killer and justice for Michael Anderson. The trial was long and complex. Jonathan's lawyers tried to reduce his sentence, citing his mental state and the pressure he was under. However, the court did not accept these arguments. Jonathan Price was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Jonathan's imprisonment became a symbol of the triumph of justice. Michael Anderson's family, while still grieving, found some relief knowing their loved one's killer had received the punishment he deserved. The city of Santa Barbara has gradually returned to normalcy, restoring its reputation as a safe and tranquil place to live and work. Jack Matthews and Sarah Johnson continued their work, knowing that thanks to their efforts, another brutal crime had been solved and justice had been served. Their joint work has become an example for all who fight for truth and justice, even when the path to them turns out to be long and difficult. The trial of Jonathan Price has become one of the most talked about events in Santa Barbara in recent years. Residents of the city eagerly watched each meeting, hoping for justice for the family of Michael Anderson. The harsh sentence handed down by the court reassured the community, confirming that justice had been served. Life will never be the same for the Anderson family. Elizabeth and her children Jason and Amanda were forced to accept the terrible reality of losing a loved one. Despite their grief, they tried to continue living, finding solace in the support of friends and neighbors. Elizabeth continued to be involved in charity work, focusing her efforts on helping families facing tragedies. Michael's business empire did not collapse after his death. The interim management of the company was taken over by a trusted manager who managed to stabilize the situation and continue the development of projects. Anderson Realty continued to prosper, a tribute to its founder. Jack Matthews and Sarah Johnson received well-deserved recognition for their work. Their tireless efforts and professionalism helped solve a complex and confusing case. For them, this was not just another investigation, but a case that changed them. Jack, who had always been stoic and determined, became even more convinced of the importance of his work. Sarah, with her sharp mind and intuition, showed that even the most difficult cases can be solved if you don't give up. The investigation process revealed many secrets that Michael Anderson had been hiding from the public. His connections with criminal elements and financial fraud became known to the general public. This damaged his reputation as an ideal citizen and businessman, but also showed that even the most respected people can have dark sides. The city of Santa Barbara, which experienced this tragedy, also changed. Residents have become more attentive to their neighbors and colleagues, realizing that serious problems may be hidden behind external well-being. Increased security measures and closer monitoring of business activities have become the norm. This case also became a lesson for local authorities and law enforcement agencies. They realized that it was necessary to be more vigilant and prompt in investigating crimes so that such tragedies did not happen again. Improved investigative techniques and greater collaboration with the public are part of the new police strategy. For Jonathan Price, prison became a place where he could come to terms with his actions and try to find redemption. His admission of guilt and repentance, although coming too late, provided little consolation for the Anderson family. He understood what he had done and bore his punishment with a heavy heart. The story of the murder of Michael Anderson will remain in the memory of Santa Barbara as one of the most notorious and tragic crimes. However, this is also a story about how justice can prevail, even when the path to it is thorny and difficult. Residents of the city learned lessons from this tragedy and became more united and attentive to those around them. For Jack and Sarah, the case was a reminder that their work matters. They continued to serve their city, knowing that thanks to their efforts, many families could sleep peacefully and evil would not go unpunished.